Everyone, welcome back to our 2023 Global DEI Conference, transformative platform for diversity, equity, and inclusion, presented by Ludo and powered here on the One Business World platform. Thank you for joining us in this dynamic convergence of global thought leaders and change makers as we foster equity and shape the future together. Our next segment, we're very pleased to welcome Chris Banahan. She is the head of Global Sustainability and Citizenship at TransUnion, and she is joined by Denise Fields, the head of DEIB, also at TransUnion. They're joining us today from Seattle and Northern Virginia. Ladies, welcome. We look forward to your presentation and your discussion. Let me hand it off over to Denise. Here we go.
Thanks, Glenn, and thank you all for joining such a wonderful topic. Chris and I hope that you are able to take some nuggets away if you are in a highly matrix organization or a global organization, or if you're just looking to execute on an ESG or DEI collaborative strategy or independent strategy. So thanks for joining us. We're going to jump right into the conversation, and Chris is going to kick us off with really setting the stage around ESG, and then we'll include the DEIB perspective. This will be a very collaborative presentation, so we hope that you enjoy today's discussion. So over to Chris.
Thank you, Denise. So as Denise was just mentioning, today we're going to be covering the intersection of sustainability and DEIB. And the concept of sustainability may be a little bit new for a lot of folks on the call right now. So what is sustainability and ESG, this abbreviation we see in the middle of the screen? Why should diversity and human capital professionals care about this? And what does my role have to do as a DEIB leader have to do with sustainability? So those are going to be things that we cover throughout the presentation today. So largely speaking, sustainability refers to non-financial issues that can ultimately impact the long-term viability of the business. And sustainability programs get input from a range of different professionals and segments of the business. So investors and regulators, customers, but most importantly, and the focus of today, we get a lot of input from our employees. So particularly as we're looking at the workforce of today's companies, we see a strong representation from millennials and Gen Zers. So approximately 40% of current company compositions is covered by millennials and Gen Zs. And what does this how does this impact, and what does this have to do with sustainability? So this particular demographic over and over again is focused on sustainability and what companies are doing in terms of these non-financial factors, things like the environment, things like diversity. In fact, we see 60% of millennials and Gen Zers willing to pay more for products. We see around 50% have read a company's environmental and diversity practices before accepting a role in a new company. About 23 to 25% plan to switch into companies and roles that have to do with sustainability. But probably the most overwhelming statistic that I will share today is 96% of Gen Z and millennials reported pushing their companies to do more on diversity and sustainability topics. So this is something that this demographic cares substantially about. It's close to half of the workforce of the companies where we work in, and it's only going to increase as time goes on. So if we could move over to the next slide. There are three key pillars to sustainability. When we're talking about this, they can be summarized in the acronym ESG, and ESG stands for Environment, Social, and Governance. And as you can see in the examples below, this covers a wide range of topics. So when we're talking about environmental issues, first and foremost, we're talking about climate change, but other topics are also covered by biodiversity, waste management practices, a host of other issues. When we're talking about governance, that can refer to also a wide breadth of different topics, including having appropriate controls and policies and reporting for a company of a particular size, and sound management practices. But again, double clicking, we're going to be focusing on the social pillar of ESG. And the social pillar covers topics such as human rights, workforce, things of that nature. But today we're going to be talking about DE&I. So I'm going to turn it over at this point to Denise to, as our resident diversity expert at TransUnion, to discuss a little bit about how, what is DEIB and how that interacts.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chris. And before joining TransUnion and having the opportunity to collaborate so closely with our sustainability office and Chris and her team in particular, I originally probably would put DEI and sustainability as these two complete, distinct, just separate things. And while they are both critical and essential and can be separate by definition, they are so interrelated in a variety of ways. And using the DEI lens, I mean, people are at the heart of ESG. And when we think about our different identities and who we are and our experiences and our home life and our backgrounds and our cultures, all of this is just so important as you think about not only the social aspect, but the environmental aspects, ethics, and different things. So we're actually more related than you all would think. And at TransUnion, we refer to our inclusion efforts and broader diversity efforts as diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Many companies use a variety of terminology, so there's no one right way to talk about this and to implement this. But at TransUnion, we are really anchoring in on that feeling of belonging and the feeling of inclusion. So I may use that terminology interchangeably. So let's talk about how DEIB teaches ESG. And ESG also teaches DEIB. Chris is going to touch on that in a moment. But let's talk about, from my side of the house, how it touches on ESG from my perspective and based on the experiences that Chris and I have had through this work over the last few years. So DEIB helps support inclusive hiring practices, from sourcing candidates, hiring candidates, recruiting candidates. Chris shared some important stats around what's important to people. These are applicants. This is great talent that is perusing your website or looking you up in the local paper to really understand where your stance are on some of these very important topics and issues. As Chris thinks about her talent population with recruiting people, right? She's found that the profession is, about 80% professionals identify as white or non-minority. And so we know that there's a huge opportunity as we talk about the talent and diversification. Intersectionality of issues. Things are no longer black and white. There's gray, there's colors, right? There's a lot of color in this work, and we love it because it allows us to be creative. Where ESG, I've learned that some things are heavily regulatory in nature, compliance in nature. And so Chris is able to bring that to the conversation, and I can bring more of that color, and we can be innovative in reaching our mutual goals. And then lastly, being flexible in our approach. You must be flexible in any way that you want to implement long-term success, because there's no one way to do things, right? Your goal remains the same, but I would encourage us all to be flexible, right? And how we accomplish those goals, right? We can't always lead with numbers. Numbers can be misconstrued. but we always have a strategic roadmap. It's a business imperative in which we measure what we do, because as we know, what we measure gets done. And if you stop measuring it, it's hard to assess what's working and what's not. But Chris knows when we get into meetings and we have conversations, sometimes I can't always lead the same way her team may be able to lead. And just bringing it together just comes together quite beautifully. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris to talk about how ESG has informed and taught and helped collaborate on the DEIB side of the house.
Yeah. And before I kick it off, I will say the opposite is also true to what Denise just said. Like, just because I can reach certain audiences, Denise can also reach certain audiences where sustainability usually leads with more of a compliance data approach. Denise, I find, leads with a lot of heart, and that is a different way to reach associates that may not be on board. So the opposite is also true, her ability to reach out to other colleagues. So as Denise was just explaining, sustainability teams can gain a lot from the expertise and input of DEI professionals. And the conversion is also true. The inverse is also true. So sustainability and ESG teams can offer a lot of insight into DE&I teams that are looking to report out diversity information, that are looking to broaden their impact, and most importantly, are looking for that feedback from different perspectives. So from a reporting integrity perspective, we see around the world there's a lot of interest in regulating sustainability reporting, sustainability programming at companies. In the US, a couple of years ago, the SEC finalized rule that was focused on human capital reporting, and it has announced, tentatively that next year it will be releasing another rule on human capital disclosure that is anticipated to be even more detailed. And this is just one example of how DE&I teams and sustainability teams can collaborate together, because we can help provide the context, the right framework to be disclosing this kind of information, so that we're meeting those regulatory compliance needs, as well as providing the transparency that all of our stakeholders hope to see. Another way that sustainability can contribute to diversity efforts is through collaboration. And so being able to work cross-functionally and collaborate on different initiatives actually helps accelerate the adoption throughout the business, and helping embed that more significantly throughout. So making it much more far-reaching. In terms of the last pillar, or the last way that I see sustainability helping contribute to diversity efforts, is through offering cross-functional perspectives. So as we spoke at the beginning, there was a lot of sustainability teams help get a lot of input from different experts. And so this helps us be able to identify pain points early and offer cross-functional perspectives. And just this really quickly, there are three main ways in which you can get a lot of output from working in a matrixed organization. So working in a matrix or organization can help anchor and spread out that impact that companies are trying to do. It helps promote cultural sensitivity. So collaborating with DE&I teams helps understand the particular cultural and regional challenges, so that programs are adequately assembled. And finally, having consistent reporting on diversity and people metrics is important for both diversity and sustainability. So collaborating helps make sure that we're providing the same information to all stakeholders So Denise, I'm going to pass it over to you for some final thoughts.
Yeah, no, this is great, Chris. And I think the reporting consistency as we're going through our annual reports now, so much work, but extremely valuable. So I just continue to love our collaborative spirit between the two offices. So Chris and I thought it would be important to leave you all with 3 key takeaways because we know that people are on a variety of a journey, whether it's with standing up a sustainability strategy or DEI strategy. You all may be working on very lean teams, and we are sharing a lot of information. So the first thing we'd like to leave you with is to leverage the collaboration to meet your mutual goals, right? We all sometimes want to knock performance review through the ballpark or hit all our goals, but I would strongly encourage you all to work together because you're going to go further and longer and more successful as you collaborate with your key partners in the sustainability office. The second thing is create a roadmap or create a North Star, a business strategy. Always approach this work as a business imperative with a strategy, right? And start small, right? Is this a 12-month strategy? And break it down each quarter on how are we progressing, right? Because it may take some time to really get some learnings under your belt. Or is this a 2-year strategy and you have some learnings and you've adjusted your strategy and now you're ready for, like the 18-month, 24-month strategy where you're continuing to assess progress, right? And to flex. Be flexible with the approach, right? I can't tell you how many times Chris and I have a plan A and we have to go to the plan B, but we never change our goal. But how we accomplish those is where we flex. And then the third takeaway is remember to have recurring check-ins with your key stakeholders. Chris and I both have a very small team, and so we leverage other subject matter experts. We don't know it all, right? So we leverage them, especially international in some of our regions, right? Whether it's India, the UK, Canada, wherever it is, because they're on the ground there, but we're leading from kind of an enterprise level. So leverage these folks. They're very smart and they know this work, right? Have the check-ins, have the scorecards, have the progress reports. Thank your champions for all the great work that they're doing as you continue to push the status quo to always raise that bar, each and every year so that your organization is 1, a place where you're proud of, and 2, your external stakeholders, whether that's applicants, other folks are proud to work with you as well. So that's all Chris and I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in to just a wonderful topic, and we'll turn it over to Glenn.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Chris. Great job. Great conversation. Impressive slides. Those were some pretty compelling statistics you guys had there at the beginning, the 60% and the 90%. I found it interesting on that first slide, the circle slide, when you focus on the employee piece, how things like purpose of work are there. The feeling of being welcomed is there. You don't see a whole lot of stuff like, well, what's my compensation? It's really an interesting kind of turn here over the last number of years as people start to focus on that and want to then associate themselves with companies like that or with brands from a consumer standpoint, right? We know we've all been witnessing those types of kind of shifts away from people where it doesn't necessarily coincide with your own set of beliefs and things. So very, very, very impressive. I love the North Star idea. That's a great item for people to keep in mind as we look ahead. From just maybe one quick question, and I know we're tight on time here. How important do you guys find the B? Because not everybody puts the B in their diversity acronyms or statements and belonging and the like. I'm just curious, what's been your experience with that?
That's a great question, Glenn. And I can just give you how we evolved to that from a TransUnion perspective. I joined, I think it's maybe a year or 2 now. And instead of coming into the organization, telling our organization what we needed to be called, Glenn, we did a natural evolution. So what naturally made sense for our people, what they were telling us, whether this was small focus groups, our inclusion and belonging groups, or our pulse survey, where we post and have some cultural type questions. And what we found is that people want to come somewhere they feel like they can belong. And they can bring not just their whole self to work, but maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're having a tough situation, managing some children things, right? Whatever that is, the mental health component. That's extremely important to us. All of that is around belonging. Do I have to show up and feel like, well, Glenn thinks I'm perfect? Or can I say, you know what, Glenn, I'm having a tough day today. Can I talk to you about this, right? So that belonging, we found that if we center on that we were going to be able to support our people better, to talk about this work, beyond a surface level, right? And to really unpack what our associates really need from us and how they want to feel. And we really believe that that's going to translate to them adding more opinions during conversations, being more innovative with our clients. So we really want to anchor on that. And so we have that thread throughout, whether it's our sustainability report, our diversity report, as well as just what our leaders are echoing as well in the organization.
No, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And as you said, you talked about measurements and having periodic check-ins. Those are all obviously critical, as is the integrity around the accumulation of those types of measures as well. And as you noted on your slide, a lot of people sometimes, you get this with greenwashing sometimes as well, where they'll cherry pick certain things, and it doesn't necessarily really relate to that which they're trying to put forth. So you have to be very careful on that side of all. And it's all in for everybody, right? As you said, cross-functional, very important, right? This isn't just something that the board of directors is preaching. And it goes probably well beyond what your mission statement may be, and it just becomes who everybody is as you move forward. So listen, thank you very much for joining us here. You guys did a wonderful job, everybody. Denise Fields and Chris Banahan from TransUnion. Thanks for joining the Global DEI Conference, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, Glenn.
Take good care. Bye.